This is StoryBeat with Steve Cuden, a podcast for the creative mind. StoryBeat explores how masters of creativity develop and produce brilliant works that people everywhere love and admire. So join us as we discover how talented creators find success in the worlds of imagination and entertainment. Here now is your host, Steve Cuden.
Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. We're coming to you from the Steel City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. StoryBeat episodes are widely available at storybeat.net, on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and on numerous other podcast apps and platforms. Won't you please take a moment to subscribe to StoryBeat wherever you listen to podcasts? Well, my guest today, the extraordinarily gifted saxophonist and composer Danny Lerman, has studied with Junior Walker's legendary teacher Charlie Atkins and at the Music School of the University of North Texas and the Berklee School of Music, as well as with Peter Ballin. Both of Danny's CDs, Danny's Island and Meow Baby, earned stunning reviews, opening the door to international airplay, festivals, and concerts in Finland, Venezuela, South Africa, the Netherlands, Turkey, Hong Kong, Mexico, Israel, and of course the US. Danny has recorded and performed with Howard Hewett, Danny Boy, Bobby Lyle, Norman Connors and Jimmy Mngwandi, Peabo Bryson, the late Kevin Mahagony, Onder, Focan, Randy Brecker, Dave Valentin, and Hubert Laws. He's opened for Herbie Hancock, Michael Brecker, Sergio Mendez, Richard Elliot, David Benoit, Eric Marienthal, the Ghetto Boys, and Joe Lovano, among others. Danny's beautiful, exotic songs, lush arrangements, captivating improvisation, and bravura showmanship please jazz lovers everywhere he plays. Check out Danny's original music and compositions, as well as his new sax work, on Dutch ska artist Le Prince's new album, and with Turkish singer Omar Faruk Tekbilik. Please be sure to hang around at the end of the show for a special performance of Danny's gorgeous new song, Blueberry Pie, which has been climbing the charts on Smooth Jazz Network's This Week's Beats. Blueberry Pie is co-written with and produced by Adam Hawley. I'm so very pleased to welcome one of the very greatest saxophonists of our day, Danny Lerman, to StoryBeat. Danny, thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you. That's one heck of an intro. Wow.
Tell us a little bit about your history. Tell us, where did your love of music begin? At what age? And when did your composing begin?
You know, I think for every artist, I'm speaking for myself, but I would imagine other people have this. You hear that voice inside your head. For me, it was kind of in high school and in grade school. My dad had a old RCA turntable with the built-in speaker console, and he had these Woody Herman and Stan Kenton records, and even some old Glenn Campbell records, although those probably came from my mom. But you know, I'd listen to everything, fascinated by even how the turntable works and how the sound comes out of the speakers, and all these tunes. And I noticed when I heard, like especially the Woody Herman records, like Raven Speaks, you know, and some of these classic ones, after I would hear the records, I would hear these arrangements in my head where I would hear different things going on. And then I'd hear my own melodies and like I'd hear a whole symphony in my head. And I don't know where it came from, but I thought, wow, this is great music I'm hearing in my head. If I only knew how to take what I hear in my head and write it, record it, perform it so I could listen back.
And how old were you at this time?
Share it with others.
How old were you at this time?
This was probably, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. I'll share a story of how jazz improvisation started with me. In the 4th grade jazz class, there was like an after-school jazz class, and Delos Schertz was a French horn player who was teaching the class. He was in the South Bend Symphony and played keyboard too. And he was going to teach us to improvise. We had all just in the 10th grade, no, that's in the 4th grade when you're 10. We had all just started playing our instruments, and I just started playing the alto, and partly because, you know, they had an assembly and they played all the instruments for us. and just something inside resonated when they played the sax. Plus my Uncle Don is an accomplished saxophonist too, and I always like listening to him. So there I was with my new what's the name of the Selmer student brand. Well, I had that horn that was made in Elkhart, not too far from South Bend where I'm at. And he says, we're going to teach everybody to improvise. And we thought, oh, great. So he starts out by playing some chords on the keyboard, and then he points at various people, and he says, okay, now play something over the top. And each person he points to, they can't think of anything. They're all sort of tongue-tied. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I'll think of something, and he points to me. And then I'm like, once I tried to improvise, I realized it was as if he said, start speaking Greek. Uh-huh. I don't know Greek. I don't know how you make up a note. How do you do that? It's a total foreign process when you haven't done it before. Just ask any fantastic symphony musician that's great at reading but has never improvised a note in their life. Mm-hmm. You'll be shocked to see most of them couldn't make up a note, even though they're wonderful musicians, because it's a totally different thing. It's like speaking a new language. So then he realized nobody could do anything, or maybe he was making a point. And then he said, okay, Lerman, I'm going to play something and you copy me. And he played a very simple idea like ba 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 da da. And then I tried to copy that. But the minute you try to copy somebody else, your mind hears it, well, he played ba da ba ba da da da. But I hear it ba da ba 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 da. You hear it differently. Mm-hmm. In the act of copying somebody, you have also filtered it through your taste and likes, and you've changed it, and you started improvising without realizing it. And then I also realized that's the same way you learn a language. You copy what your mother says. Sure. But after you hear how she speaks, it's filtered through your personality, God-given, and it comes out different because you have different thoughts you want to say in different ways you want to express yourself from her, even though the notes come from her, but the way you play the notes come from you. So you really start learning jazz improvisation just like you're learning a language. You start by copying other people, how they do it. It's filtered through you, and then you develop that process of not even have to hear somebody else's notes. You just start jumping to, I hear this. And that sort of explains my improvisation process and how it's developed within me. So other than rap, I can't think of any other style of music or genre of music other than jazz in which there is a known need and a purpose to improvisation. Most other music is arranged and played exactly as it's arranged. But jazz, you can riff and go off into all kinds of different directions. Similarly, I say, because I think it's important to note that rap, also there are rappers that can improvise what they're doing, and that they have whole competitions over that. Mm-hmm. So can you think of anything other than jazz in which you can improvise the way you're talking? Well, in a sense, all popular music is improvised in the studio because I'll give you an example. We start with the tune. And the tune is demoed up a certain way, but the producers I've worked with, I'm working with Tal Bergman on some other songs that are not smooth jazz, and Tal was a predominant producer on Meow Baby and Danny's Island. He was a drummer with Billy Idol and played with Joe Zawinul and many others. Very accomplished guy. He always said that don't fall in love with your demo. Hire the best musicians you can. And he liked to say, before you tell them what to do on a new song, mm-hmm. let's hear what they come up with, because you don't want to stifle them. Right. So for instance, the bass player, you may have an idea of a bass line, and they may hear it on the demo, but let them come up with their own bass line. So in a sense, a lot of people record this way. They may have a certain line they want, but they'll also give the musician a chance to come up with your own line. Or even if you're coming up with a certain bass line, there's room for some fills in between those lines.
Right.
Or it may to the bridge where you want a different vibe and you haven't figured out what the bass line should be for the bridge section. Well, you're going to give your musician a chance to hear what's going on with the chords and the drums and the vocals or the horn. Let him come up with a new bass line. So they're improvising within the chord structure of what that is. Even the keyboard player, you know, you might give him the chords and he knows the vibe of the tune, whether it's funky, whether it's jazzy or country. So within that, and within the context of the other instruments playing in the song, he's going to improvise in how he plays the voicings, the rhythm of his comping. All that is really improvisation as well.
Mm-hmm.
No, and even the rock songs, when they're coming up with an Aerosmith guitar line, that's all improvised because nobody's written it yet. Somebody had to write it. And the act of writing is improvising sometime in the studio there. I got to come up with a nice rhythm guitar line. They're making it up. So everything is really improvising. The only thing that's not is like maybe a film score or a Broadway show kind of song where everything is specifically written out. But even, you know, and you've heard a recording and you've heard how they may have the chords written out and not the exact rhythm, but you know the style of it. So there's less room to improvise on that. But when the songs are being...
I was going to say, did you learn most of this as you were a young person, or was it the training at Berklee or in Texas? Were you trained to do more of that as you grew into your education of it?
Well, I'll tell you, I had never written a song before until I went 1 year to Berklee, then I transferred to North Texas. And we had Dan Hurley was teaching the theory of jazz. And then it made sense to me finally, chord structure and how you have a root. And then you have, you know, the triad. And after you have the root, you know, the third, whether it's minor or major, dictates whether it's a minor or major chord. And then you have the fifth. Is it a flat fifth, a regular fifth, and then the seventh? So I realized I could figure out the chords by simply, on my left hand, figuring out what the bass note is. So if I'm playing a C in my left hand, I know the chord is called a C something. And then based on whether I'm doing a bum, 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 which would be C major, or a bum, 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 that would be a C minor. So I have that figured out. And then I figured out, do I even want to have a seventh in there? Call it a C seventh chord would be a flatted seventh, or, you know, a major seventh chord. And then I knew how to spell it out so I could hear it and sing, play it on the piano, sing the melody over the top, see if I like this or I want to change the chord. For me, being a melody guy, on the saxophone, I usually would come up with the melody first. But sometimes as I'm looking for chords, I'd play a chord and the chord would make me hear some other melodies. So it works both ways. Sometimes the melody first and then I find a chord to fit it. Sometimes I'm playing the chords and I hear a melody that fits over that. But once I realized that theory and how to spell the chords, then I could start writing down the chord changes. And when I was in North Texas, I stayed in this crazy music dorm. I think it was called Bruce Hall. So I would leave my dorm room open and I had this 8-track Tascam reel-to-reel. And I would think, okay, I need a keyboard player. So I had a keyboard in my room hooked up to the mixer and everything. And I would wait till a keyboard player walked by and I would run out in the hallway. I'd grab him and say, hey, you got to come in here for a second. and whatever musician I needed, I would grab them and say, come in the room for a second, play this part. And, you know, being able to record in a home studio kind of thing was kind of new back then. This was even before the ADATs. It was all reel to reel.
Sure.
But it really, I could get anybody I want and everybody was fascinated by the writing process. And then I was demoing up tunes. And the side benefit of writing songs is it forces you to think who you are as an artist. Because there's a lot of wonderful musicians and they're happy with being like a sideman and playing brilliantly on other people's records. But when you start writing songs, you are forced to become an artist because you're thinking, what kind of music do I like? What am I about? What do I want to say? As if you're giving a speech. What do I want to talk about? What do I feel that I want to share with everybody musically? What do I like? What inspires me? What puts a smile on my face? You know, what makes me miss my girlfriend? What, you know, and when you think of that and then you write the songs like that, and it forces you to play what you're going to like, and you're figuring out who you are as an artist by writing the songs. And that really helped me. And I'll tell you how I kind of figured out who I was as an artist was what interested me as a person. In Boston, you know, I was from a kind of small suburban town in South Bend, Indiana. And back then there wasn't as many people from all over the world in town, although Notre Dame University would bring in some people from around the world and out of state. But I didn't feel like I was into the frat parties and the sorority things. But then I met this guy from the Dominican Republic, Rudy, who used to dress like Castro. And he said, Danny, I'm going to show you something. So one night he took me to an international student party, and that's where all the Latins were. And they were mostly from South America and pretty wealthy. This was like a private business school. I really went there to play ice hockey for Babson College, though. That's before I went to Berklee. And so I was like a whole new world. I was fascinated by these people and the cultures from all these different countries that I could just only dream about going and what they're like. And then they'd play their music. And then I wanted to bring some of that flavor of their country into the jazz that I grew up studying with Junior Walker's teacher, Charlie Atkins. And that started coming together. And I often tell people, if I was a restaurant, I'd be a world fusion restaurant.
Wow, very good.
You know, and that's kind of like what I like to do musically. I take bits and pieces and flavors from places I've been around the world that are tasty to me, and I bring them into my music. Because of that, often it does not fit a particular radio format or even jazz format. Usually it's somewhere in the middle. It's not smooth jazz, it's not straight ahead, even though it's very improvisational and could be a lot of soloing on there. That's why it was important to work with people that are very good at, for a radio single, very good at focusing your creativity to fit in that format, like Adam Hawley is, and that he's done with my new single, Blueberry Pie.
Which we're going to hear at the end of the show.
And he was brilliant at it. And I often tell people over the years, I have proven that I have no idea how to produce something that's going to be successful on smooth jazz, because all people like the music, but it is a little too off for the format in the past, which has made it actually more likable overseas, and it's done very well there. But for this particular format, you really have to focus it and kind of study it, and work with people that are very good at focusing it for that.
How often do you wind up working with folks that aren't as good at improvising or being in that moment as you are? Does that happen, or are you mostly now where it's everyone you work with is pretty good at it?
Well, you know, no matter who you work with, no matter how spectacular they are, everybody kind of has their own flavor. And so you want to put, you know, work with the right people that are the correct flavor for what you're doing. And likewise, they're going to hire you because you're bringing the right flavor for what they're doing. So, you know, nobody is going to have the correct, perfect flavor for everything. I heard a story when Michael Brecker was on tour with the You Can Call Me Al tour with Paul Simon.
Right.
They were playing a South African horn rhythm. And he said to them, you know what, I think I better just lay out and let you guys do this one. So even Michael Brecker realizes that he's not an expert in South African rhythms,
Right.
you know, and nobody's an expert in everything, although
No.
I'm sure whatever he would have played would have been beautiful. But for that authentic feel, he let those guys take it. So everybody, I look at it this way, that everybody has their own special, unique, good qualities to bring.
Their strengths.
Their strength, yes. So you use the right strengths on and match them to what's needed.
So when I listen to your work, and I've heard a number of songs you've done, I struggle with this. You don't call them songs, do you? They don't have words to them. What do you call them? Pieces? Piece of music? What do you refer to it as? Or do you say song?
I call them my babies.
Your babies.
I created them.
So,
yes, they're songs, they're symphonies, they're movements, they're emotions, their happiness, their sadness.
Music is nothing if not emotion. It's all about emotion, right?
Yeah, just saying the word song is not expressive enough to describe any music.
Right, exactly. That's why I struggled with it a little bit, because usually I think of song, you're melding words and music together and make a song, and what you're playing is music. There are no words set to it. So I struggled with what you call it.
One thing I know I'm doing with everything I write, I'm bringing me.
Sure.
Because I'll give you a story. The first week when I transferred to North Texas, they give you a key to this beautiful practice building. Every student has their own practice room.
Oh, nice.
And a key. So you're going in there and walking down the hallway, and you hear hundreds of guys practicing, especially tons of sax players. And you hear some licks like, I mean, fast as hell, gorgeous jazz licks, or scales going a mile a minute. And like, oh my God, listen to the talent in this place. Why do I even bother thinking that I can be like that? And then through the art of writing, I realized I'm not trying to be like them. I'm trying to be like me.
Yeah, there you go.
And and I have something really exciting to offer. And I know that because I just wrote a song and I love this. It moves me. So all I have to do is do what I do the best that I can. I don't have to worry about what he's doing. You know what? Maybe I can't do what he's doing. But I'll tell you what, he can't do what I'm doing like I do what I'm doing. And once you realize that people want to see you be you, they don't want to see me be him.
Right.
They don't want to see me be Brecker or Sanborn or anybody else. They want to see Danny Lerman be Danny Lerman. And that's when I'm really offering something that's exciting to me. And then I know it will be exciting to everybody else.
So I think what you're talking about is maybe the singular most important thing that all artists of all kinds must develop, and that's your own voice, who you are, your expression, the way that you bring it, whether you're a painter or a composer or a dancer or a writer, it doesn't matter what art form you're in, or an actor, you're bringing you to the party. You're not doing an imitation of someone else, you're doing you.
That's right. And it's not just with music. Music helped me in freshman composition class. And I imagine, you went through this, and a lot of people went through this, where your freshman year, usually, they give you all these rules for how to write. First, you have to say what you're going to talk about.
Sure.
Then you got to kind of, give all the different chapters of what you're talking about. And then after you talk about it, you got to say what you talked about. And that is just such an uncreative structure to try to say anything interesting or in an interesting way. Finally, by the end of my freshman year, maybe it was sophomore year, when I had more important things to do, like, play hockey, practice my horn, and go to parties, I don't have time to make 3-4 revisions. I said, forget these rules. I'm just going to write a paper, what comes to my mind, and I'm going to trust my instincts. So I didn't even do a first draft or a last draft. I thought about it. Here's what I want to say. Yeah, man. Oh, that's a great idea. I'm going with it. Right. give it to the typist. That dates me, right? And those were the best papers I ever wrote, because I was writing from inspiration. And the minute you start
Second guessing?
overthinking and giving second thoughts about what you're doing, you've destroyed it. I heard somebody say a quote from Ernest Hemingway that he used to say about writing and all creativity: write drunk, but edit sober. Because when you're drunk, you have no filter. You're letting it out. So that's what you have to do. You can't think, oh, is this a good idea? Is this really a good note? Does this song really suck? Should I really even be writing like this? Maybe I should be writing something else with somebody else, someplace else. The minute you do that, you're sunk. You have to like believe in yourself. If you think it, let it out. Trust your instincts. And you know what? Worst come to worst, you can edit after.
Sure.
But you really start creating when you just trust yourself and open up and let it flow.
How much does, I mean, I think we've just talked about it, but I'm just curious, when you're performing live, how much does passion that night mean to the performance? Is it everything?
It definitely affects you, because there's two different thought processes going on. Well, maybe three. First of all, there's your concept of what you want to do on the song, but then you're not playing by yourself to a track. You're playing with live musicians. And the live musicians, first of all, every musician is going to bring a different vibe to the song, even though they're reading off the same chart.
Sure.
And second of all, every venue and every audience is going to affect those musicians and make them play a little differently as well. And the excitement in the building is going to affect you. So as an artist, you are reacting to what your inner conscience is telling you to play, but you're also reacting to what the bass player just said, or what the drummer just said, or what the keyboard player just said. But then you're also reacting to how that beautiful girl in the front row just reacted to what you played, or this older lady that has a tear going down her cheek, or if you can't see that much detail because the lights are in your face, the cheers coming up, or the hush in the room after you just did something, or the clapping, that encourages you. So you're reacting to all these three things: the audience, the band, and yourself. And it's all creating the end product, which is going to be unique for that particular time and space and place.
Well, it's interesting because I assume you play a lot of your own work, a lot of your own compositions. And so you're both creator and interpreter at the same time. And then on top of it, you're laying on a level of new creation and interpretation in each performance. Have I got that correct?
Yeah. And sometimes I find myself trying to copy a Danny Lerman lick. And sometimes, but you never play it the same way twice, even trying to copy yourself. But then you hear it like, well, I played this here, but I really feel like I should do this differently here. And then you're in the middle of doing something, but then the bass player plays a line like, oh my gosh, I want to copy that rhythm. So you go off on that tangent and it's exciting. But then you hear the drummer playing a rhythm and then you go follow that. But then you're hearing something in your head that you heard years ago in Africa, and then you play that. And all this stuff is coming out. So it's a conversation with the people in the room, the musicians on the stage, and with you, and past conversations you've had, just like we're talking right now.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm curious, process-wise, are you a voracious practicer? Do you practice every day? Do you play every day?
I certainly aspire to practice every day. I don't always get the chance, but I aspire to put in at least a minimum of an hour a day, and or more. And especially if I got some shows or some difficult music to work out. And, you know, I was reading something, there's different jazz emails I get. And the concept was, when you're trying to learn something new, you should cut it down to small pieces that you can digest and really learn it well, rather than like learning a whole solo from somebody or taking too big a chunks, because when you cut it down to a small piece and you can really learn it well, then it's usable. But if you try to grab something too big that you can't digest, you're never going to be able to get that in your repertoire because you haven't learned it well. So I try to take something smaller pieces and learn it, and some new licks, or playing over some different chord scale compositions, or trying a new idea on this. And also I will practice sort of the basics, long tones with a tuner, because you got the first thing you have to have is play in tune and play a nice tone.
So explain for those who don't know what you mean when you say play in tune. What do you mean?
You know what? There's the Western tones, the 12 half steps. And if you're playing those frequencies that have to be the same tuning as the other instruments, you can play with the tuning a little bit to create some excitement and emotion. But then you got to kind of come back into it. And if you're just playing kind of out of tune, it's going to get in the way of the enjoyment of what you're doing.
What happens is does it begin to sound just off or wrong, or?
Yeah, it will begin to sound off or wrong. Now, it's the same with rhythm. In fact, Rich Madison taught a lesson at North Texas, and he was a euphonium player and a great improviser and teacher. And he said, really, there's no right and wrong notes. There's only right and wrong rhythms.
Interesting.
And he explained that, and we were like, what? And he explained it like this, that as long as you play in rhythm, it's going to sound right. And you can play around with the rhythm, like you know where the time is, and some guys deliberately lay back, or Beyonce will lay back in her vocals a little bit behind. That's kind of an R&B style now.
Or Sinatra, way
yeah,
behind.
or they'll lay back behind, but then they'll bring it back in, and that's tension and release. And then it sounds right because they know where the rhythm is and they know where the tuning is. You'll bend a note, but then you'll come back to the correct pitch. So the same with notes. There's no such thing as a bad note. Because a bad note is just tension. Let's say a note that's out of the scale or out of the chord. It could be generally a half step away from a good note. And there's no good notes really without bad notes. There's no good people without bad. There's no yin without yang. And it's the same with music, the way the world is, that emotionally somebody plays a note that's a little weird and they're holding on to it, and it's like, and then they resolve it and you're like, the listener, they're starting to go out like this crazy Brecker thing that's totally in a different key, but it's like way out there, and you're like, what? Oh yeah, and you can't go in if you don't go out. So if you're going to play a wrong note, play it with authority, and people will think, wow, that's genius. I never thought of doing that. And then you'll bring it back in. So the only caveat is, whatever you do, you have to do it in rhythm. You can play a bunch of beautiful notes, but if they're out of rhythm, they'll just be sloppy. So really important, get your rhythm together. You don't have to play perfectly in rhythm, but know where the time is, and you can play with the time in and out. Practice with the metronome, practice with drummers, but probably more importantly is listen to the drummer. Listen to the bass player. And as long as you're listening to the rhythm, your ear will force you to play in that rhythm. If you're too much just thinking about what you're going to play and you forget about what the rhythm's doing, then you could have a tendency to go out.
So you're not saying that you're only really as good as the rhythm players, are you? So if they're off, are you off?
I'll tell you, in a show, it could be you're only as good as the weakest link. For instance, if the drummer's rhythm is off in a show, and sometimes I've had some shows where that has happened.
Sure.
Thankfully, not in the recent, time, but it has happened. When that happens, and the rhythm of the drummer's off, it makes the rhythm of everybody else off. And then when you're trying to lay down the song, your notes, you don't have a place to put them because the drummer's rhythm is off, which makes you have no time that's correct to put your notes in time. So it throws you off, or the drummer will start to be in, but then he goes off. It distracts you from what you're trying to play because you hear the rhythm going off, and then all of a sudden you pause even for a microsecond because you're not sure where to put the next note because the drummer's not sure where the rhythm's going. So you know everything's working if you're not even thinking about it.
Interesting.
Because if everything sounds right, you're just thinking about what you're doing and it's falling into place because everybody's locked in. But if something is wrong, it can distract you from creating. Now the audience, some of them might not notice, but you notice, and that's affecting your performance. So that's why if nothing else is right, you want to at least have everybody locked into the rhythm.
So how much do you need to then rehearse with a band? Because obviously you're going to go into a certain amount of improvisatory work during a performance.
Mm-hmm.
How much rehearsal do you have to do, and how hard do you try to lock in certain elements of it?
Well, there's different scenarios. I mean, if you're going on a big long tour, then you're able to have multiple rehearsals, like a Michael Jackson show. They may rehearse for a month.
Sure.
And figuring out not just the songs, but how they're going to go from one song into the next song, how the lighting is going to be, where they're going to be standing on the stage, if they're going to be moving in a certain way, all these different things. Typical gigs for a jazz guy, you're lucky to have one rehearsal or maybe two at the most. Sometimes you might be traveling with your own band. Sometimes you might just have your music director or your keyboard player. Sometimes you go there with the charts and you have to rehearse a bunch of new musicians and you only get one rehearsal. The key is that you send the charts and the songs beforehand. They learn the songs themselves by listening and looking at the charts. So when it comes to rehearsal, they already know their parts. So during rehearsal, you're fine-tuning how you're going to start the song, what keyboard patch they're using, maybe how long's your solo going to be, how you're going to get from one song to the other, dynamics, make sure everybody drops down at the beginning of the solo. So during the solo, you can build the excitement in the volume, these kind of things. And you get the best musicians you can that learn fast, and it usually works out. And even if the guys don't play exactly the parts, sometimes I prefer that because I like to hear new things. Surprise me. I say, you don't have to play all the parts exactly like the record and get the vibe of the record, but if you want to, every once in a while, you hear a new idea, throw it in there. It's going to be more exciting for all of us. So I like to balance that, give them some freedom.
Who writes your charts? Who does your arranging? Is it you or did somebody else do it for you?
I used to write more of my charts, but now, I like to have other people. My friend Tim Kobza that teaches at USC Guitar, or Adam Hawley just wrote a chart for me. And there's some other guys that write charts for me. Sometimes I'll write a basic chord chart. Sometimes it requires more detail in there, exactly what the guitar part or drum part is there. You need to write out a line for the keys, or there may be some background horns or vocalists that need charts, or it depends on the song.
And when you're traveling, you are not always working with the exact, or are you always working with the exact same instruments, or does that vary from venue to venue? So you might have a drum and a bass and guitar and as opposed to maybe you're missing the guitar one night or something like that. Does that happen?
I would say usually it's a 4-piece rhythm section and me, guitar, keyboards, bass, and drums. Sometimes if it's pared down, it could be without the guitar player. It would be just, keyboard, bass, and drums. Sometimes I might even do a duo with on other things with just keyboard and me. And sometimes I might even have tracks and it's just me with the track, you know. Usually it's the full band, and sometimes I'm lucky enough to have, I've been playing in Indonesia recently. So over there, I've been able to add a string section, some Indonesian percussionists, sometimes some background singers.
But that
You know, it all
that flavor
depends.
must be very interesting.
Yeah, it is. I'll tell you a couple stories. My last trip in Indonesia was in December, you know, before the COVID was really hitting in America and over there as well. I was the first American to play the Maluku Islands in Indonesia. It's the Christian islands. And it's kind of third world, beautiful place. The capital city is Ambon. And they brought me in, and they had this 50-foot banner across the street right outside the airport, all these signs up. I was almost embarrassed to see my face so many places like this. I could not believe it. And, you know, I'm in the hotel. On the way, the hotel, I said hello to this nice couple and said, "Oh, where are you guys going tonight?" They said, "Oh, we're going to hear this guy named Danny Lerman. He looks interesting." And I said, "Oh yeah, I think you'll like it. He's very good." And I got there. There was 12,000 people there in this huge market square, huge stage. It was glorious, you know. So everybody's big somewhere. So I can say I'm big in Maluku. I'll give you another inspirational story. I went to the Gavin convention a few years ago when there still was a Gavin report. And this was in New Orleans. And I saw my friend Joe McBride, that he's a great keyboard player and singer, went to North Texas. We were in improv class together. And I said, "Hey, Joe, how you doing? It's Danny Lerman." "Oh, Danny, hey, how are you?" And I had my Danny's Island CD with me, and I was passing them out to radio people. And he was with, oh gosh, what's his name? Joe's manager, the head of Heads Up Records. And Joe introduced me to him, and I said, "Oh, here's my new CD, Danny's Island." And I gave one to Joe. And then with them was also a promoter from South Africa who was the head of a radio station also called Jazz FM in Cape Town. And I gave him a copy too, and didn't think anything of it. And then a few months later, I get an email from the promoter in South Africa saying, "Hey, Danny, your song is top 5 at Jazz FM in Cape Town. We'd like to bring you in for the Standard Bank Jazzathon." And I thought, "Oh, wow, that's awesome." It was a big festival in Cape Town. And so I got to go there, and I met Jimmy Mngwandi, a great bass player that I did some things with later. We quoted some great music. And I was invited to guest on this trumpet player show. And she said, "Come on up." So I was comfortable. I figure, you know, I'm an improviser. This is a little different kind of vibe. She had a regular rhythm section, all South Africans. And, you know, some of the band was black, some of it was white, all South Africans. And they had percussionists and 3 female singers that I believe were Zulu. And I looked out in the audience, and it wasn't very white at all out there. It was all kind of black and what they call Cape Coloreds, which is maybe Indian descent there. And I thought, wow, here I am, a white man up here on this stage. Whatever I do, I better be good. Maybe that's not politically correct, but I was a little nervous about
you were a little intimidated by
I was
that
a little
audience?
intimidated by my paleness up there on stage.
Yeah, but I'm sure you did okay, yeah?
But I figure, hey, you know what? I've got some Jewish soul. I'm going for it. So I looked out, and it was nighttime right near the harbor. Really wonderful people, animated, excited. The moon was up. You could see the stars. The weather was gorgeous. And the trumpet player said, okay, solo. So I started to play, and as I started to play, all of a sudden, the Zulu vocalist did this 3-part African harmony thing, and then I stopped because I didn't want to walk all over their vocals. And then they said, no, keep going. I started playing, and then they came in with this vocal part, and I stopped again. They said, no, play over the top of it. And I said, okay, I'm just going for it. So they had this jazz rhythm section, but with a South African laid-back vibe, but really just gorgeous. And then these 3-part Zulu vocals, and I started playing over the top, and I never heard anything like this in my life, a combination of South Africa, jazz, Zulu harmonies, and my alto soaring over the top in this gorgeous sky with the moon. And I was like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I want to record some more music like this. So from there, Jimmy Mngwandi and I started recording, and his wife was in The Lion King as a singer, and he was there as a bass player. So we did some of this music, you know, with that. And this same experience I've had in a lot of countries where I hear these beautiful things I never heard, and they stick in me, and I incorporate that flavor and that feel that I had at that special moment and put it in the song.
That's a beautiful story. Did anybody pull a recording of that performance that night?
I don't know that they did. Maybe, you know, I hope somebody was bootlegging it at the very least. But
Sure.
actually, a song from Meow Baby called Baby Goes to Market has Jimmy Mngwandi and his wife, and Tom Kona Dlamini, singing over it on the chorus, and me playing sax. So that's a good example of a song that has some of that flavor that was captured at that moment.
All right. So I'm just curious, what inspires you then to write a new piece of music? Where do your inspirations come from? Everywhere? Are there specific places you go to seek inspiration? Where did the songs come from? Where do the new pieces of music come from?
Sometimes it could be a girl.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a girl from my past, or it could be, you know, the feeling of winning a hockey tournament, you know, and you want a happy thing. Or I wrote a pretty sad song when my dog died, and also an example of a blueberry pie. I went to Adam Hawley's place to write with him. We had nothing. We just said, we're going to write a song, and we're going to write one right now. So we just started thinking of stuff. And then he's also, besides great guitar player, also plays keyboard wonderfully, and started playing something. And I said, well, a little more, I'm hearing this. And then, okay. And then he'd play a chord, a couple chords together, put it with the drum beat, and I sang over a melody. Like, I hear a melody, but I hear the chords going here. And this is an example of collaborating with somebody, which is a very fun way to write and a quick way to write as well. So we vibed off each other. Like, he would write a chord, or maybe I would come up with a melody that was a little different and forced his chords to follow me.
Mm-hmm.
And together we built the song in building blocks, first with a chorus. And then we maybe wrote a verse section, and then sort of a pre-chorus section. And then after that, we added another bridge. So we had all the building blocks, and then we pieced them together to see what we had. And it came into the, like, yeah, this is going to be very nice. And then from there, you know, you build it one step at a time. This is probably started with a drum track, and, you know, added some bass and keyboards one track at a time. It wasn't all in the studio at once. And other tunes, I might sit in the piano and start humming a melody over, and then write the chords to match it. Or I play some chords on the piano and, like, oh wow, I hear a melody from this. And there's different ways. A lot of times I like to write in my head, because you can imagine anything in your head.
Do you
Yeah.
think of a certain audience when you write, or are you thinking only about your perception of it?
No, I'm thinking about myself and what's inspiring me,
Mm-hmm.
because the only thing I know is what excites me. I can't, and I know this, that if I write something that's going to excite me,
Mm-hmm.
it has a good chance of exciting others.
Very good.
But if it doesn't excite me, it's got no chance of exciting anybody else. So first, excite myself with it, and then you're on the right path.
So what have you learned from live performance over the years that you wish you knew when you started?
You can't do it all yourself. Learn from others, collaborate more, be a team, be patient. If something pisses you off, take a breath and give them the benefit of the doubt and realize, hey, it doesn't really matter. Enjoy the beautiful moment. Don't dwell on some small detail that takes you off track. And
it sounds to me like you've learned to love the journey.
Definitely. In my younger days, I may have focused on some silly negative things and let them take me off track and off focus. And now I've learned to, focus on the positives and the joy that you are able to have by making music and recording it. And giving birth to your baby, which is your song, and sharing it with other people and have them moved. And the fact that they're moved moves you. And it's just a joy. And then when you play music for people live, it's like you've made friends without even a discussion, just through your music. And after the stage, you meet people and everybody's friendly to you because they feel like they know you.
Yeah, you've gotten into their skin and in their souls.
Yeah, and then oftentimes they'll take you to whatever place or country you're in, like where the locals like to hang, and you'll see special things with your newfound musical friends, and it's such a wonderful way to meet people and see the world.
Do you have a particular pre-show ritual you go through all the time? What do you do before a show?
The first thing, I want to be prepared, so I'll do a little bit of practicing, not too much. I don't want to wear my lips out, right?
Right.
But
that's a term I don't hear that term very often. I don't want to wear my lips out.
Because when you're blowing the horn, you're using muscles all around your lips, and if you're not careful with sax, you can bite into your bottom lip, so you don't. Also, you want to stay fresh for the show. So I'll do some basic scales or some long tones or make sure, I remember what note the songs start on, or if there's a particular section that I was having trouble remembering. And I generally play all my own stuff without charts, I'll work on that. Or if there's a certain solo section, because once I'm prepared, I'm gonna go into that show feeling good with confidence,
mm-hmm.
and I'm not gonna worry about it. It's like, I don't care what anybody else does on stage, and if the band gets lost, I'll just follow them, or I'll have them follow me, and nobody's gonna know the difference. And we might even go to a place that was cooler than we originally had planned. And I'm going to enjoy the moment and enjoy interacting with the crowd. And I feel confident, and I'm going to go up there not nervous because I am prepared and I know my music, and that's the best way to be.
And I'm going to assume that has gotten more and more who you are over time, that it didn't start out that way, that you've moved into that more than started that way.
Yeah, that's right. You got to have faith that you do your thing and people are going to enjoy it. I remember I was playing the show in Bali. It was recently, this last year, and there was sort of a kind of a rock band that went on right in front of me, and it was a very young audience, 20 somethings. And I was like a little nervous. I said to the promoter, they're loving this music, and this is more kind of rock pop, and I'm coming in with a little bit of popish world jazz mix here that's completely different. How are they going to take it? And he said, trust me, they're going to love you. That's why I brought you here. And I said, all right, they are going to love me. And I went up there with that attitude and did my thing, enjoyed playing with the band, and I was enjoying the performance, and they enjoyed the performance, and they enjoyed that I was enjoying it. And that's how you got to think about it.
Yeah,
I-
because you're like one of the miracles of what you do, I think, especially in all forms of jazz, is that you are going back in our conversation to say you're not playing a specific set of notes every single time. You are riffing somewhat. You are going off a little bit, and I think that if you were nervous, that you would never be able to pull that off. You have to be a little bit laid back about it.
yeah. Just do your own thing and do it the best you can and enjoy yourself, because as long as you're enjoying it and you're appreciating it, it's sounding good to you, it's going to sound good to them, and they're going to it's going to be intoxicating to the audience as well.
Well, isn't that the key? Well,
Yeah.
I'm talking to Danny Lerman now for almost an hour, and we're going to wind this thing down a little bit. And I'm just wondering, in all your worldwide experiences and all your recording experiences and writing and so on, do you have a story that you can share with us that's either weird, offbeat, quirky, oddball, or maybe just plain funny?
I got a couple funny ones. One was a few years ago. I had this hit song, "You Take My Breath Away," with guest soloist Danny Boy. He used to sing with Tupac. And we were doing this show in Milwaukee. It was a very kind of young urban audience. When I say young, it was teeny boppers, right?
Right.
So, I had done mostly jazz gigs, and was used to more of a a audience, a little older kind of. And so there I am, I'm playing the solo on "Take My Breath Away," and there's this young, maybe 13-year-old girl right in front of me. And as I'm playing, she's kind of moving her shoulder kind of strangely. And all of a sudden, she reaches behind her shirt and pulls out her bra and flings it to the stage while I'm holding out my soprano. The bra lands on my soprano with one cup on one side and the other cup on the other side. And I thought, finally, I've had a rock and roll experience on stage. And I'm like, he threw this out here just for me. And just as I'm getting proud of myself, I hear this voice coming from Danny Boy, and he shouts out, "Hey, Lerman, that was for me, don't you?" And I'm like, damn, he's right. It was for him.
That's very funny.
I'll give you another one. So I was in South Bend. I was voting. And I'm in line, and there's this sweet old white-haired lady in line in front of me. And she turns around, looks at me, and doubles takes. She says, "Aren't you Danny Lerman?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am." And she says, "How's your career doing?" I said, "Oh, it's doing great." And she said, "I've been seeing in the paper you've been playing a lot in South Bend recently. If you've been playing a lot in South Bend, your career can't be going that great."
Except you just happen to live there.
She set me up, and then wham, I never saw it coming. People say the funniest things, I'm telling you.
Well, they know who you are. You don't know who they are. And they say things that they're thinking. And so there you have it.
Yeah, that's right. That's
All right.
right.
So last question for you. Do you have a solid piece of advice or a tip that you can lend to those who are maybe trying to break into the business, or maybe they're in a little bit and trying to go to the next level?
Yeah, I would say write some songs and collaborate with somebody. If you're a singer, maybe find a guitarist or keyboard player to collaborate with. If you're a horn player, same thing. And when you collaborate with somebody, you're not just coming up with your ideas, but somebody else is coming up with theirs, and you'll get the best of both worlds. And that other person will spur you on and help you create faster than many times you can just do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the easiest thing. Find a partner, a buddy, a friend. It could be several people that you respect and just enjoy being with, because hey, life's too short. If the vibe isn't right, don't waste your time, be with people that you really enjoy being with, that are going to uplift you, see the good in you, not tear you down.
That is very profound and wise advice because, as you say, life is too short, and doing your art and not enjoying it is not the way to go at all. So
That's right. And when you find people that bring out the best in you, then you're with the right people.
Well, I think that that's extremely sound and wise advice to give to anyone who's starting out, is find the right people and do what makes you happy. Don't do the things that don't make you happy, because that's no way to live in an artistic world or in an art-filled life.
Yeah. And I'll say one more thing as
Sure.
a partner to that also, I've been listening to a lot of Wayne Dyer, and he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So when you are looking at other people's music, listening to people's music, let's say I'm a sax player and I hear another sax player, don't get caught in the trap of, I don't really like what he's doing here. I don't really like what he's doing there. No. Find out what you like about what he's doing, whether you like the way he dresses, you like how he's handling himself on stage, you like the way how he talks to the audience, you like his tone, you like his solo on that one particular cut. See the good in people, and when you see the good in other musicians, they'll see the good in you.
Wow, that's awesome.
If you're looking at the bad in musicians, you'll attract them looking to the bad in yourself. So you don't want to do that. Always look at the good in whoever it is, and then the right people will come to you and looking at the good in you.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, that's uplifting to hear, and is really the way people should be in general. It's the way all of life should be. Well, Danny, this has just been a wonderful, joyful interview to hear about your experiences and how you look at composing and playing this beautiful music that you have. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, thank you so much. And, you won't tell your audience this, but you are a wonderful interviewer.
Oh, aren't you kind? Thank you so much. So to leave us, as promised, we have a real treat today. Please sit back and enjoy Danny Lerman's wonderful song, Blueberry Pie, which he wrote with Adam Hawley. And so we've come to the end of today's Story Beat. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a rating or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great Story Beat episodes to you. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden, and may all your stories be unforgettable.